The Premier's release last Friday of the roadmap to easing Queensland's restrictions has obviously created a lot of expectations in the minds of people, and the credit for reaching this point so quickly is actually due to the communities right across Queensland, including our own residents here on the Sunshine Coast. Once again, I want to acknowledge and thank our community for their efforts in observing the national public health directions, which have helped limit the transmission of Covid-19. But we must not let our guard down. And I really want to repeat that to the people of the Sunshine Coast. We must not let our guard down. As movement through our community begins to increase, so must our vigilance. And I want to remind each and every member of our community of the importance of washing your hands regularly, maintaining social distancing of 1.5 metres, and staying at home if you're feeling unwell. I also encourage everyone to download the COVID Safe app to your phones to assist with responding rapidly should infection occur. Our priority is and always has been to keep our community safe and to safeguard the health and well-being of all of our residents. And this has been very much front of mind in consideration as councillors look to respond to the easing of restrictions from this Saturday. And that is why we'll not be reopening this weekend all of the facilities that have closed as a result of the pandemic. Council will be taking a multi-stage tailored approach. We're not going to throw caution to the wind and just simply hope for the best. From Saturday, all playgrounds, exercise equipment and skate parks across the Sunshine Coast will reopen. However, there will be some restrictions in place to comply with the continuing public health directions. These facilities may only be used by a maximum of 10 people at any one time. That includes parents or carers and children. So we ask people to be mindful in using playgrounds and facilities, just to be mindful of others who might be waiting a turn. Personal trainers will also be able to hold sessions for up to 10 people, including the trainer, on council land, as long as they can demonstrate COVID-safe practices and have an existing permit in place. I also want to strongly encourage our residents to bring hand sanitiser and disinfectant wipes with them if they're touching public surfaces, such as playground equipment and exercise equipment. So again, just remind people, if you're taking your kids down to the park and they're going to be playing on the swings and or on the exercise equipment, please be conscious of having your own sanitiser or hand wipes to keep that equipment clean. There are some other facilities that will not be reopened at this time. In the interests of health and well-being of our residents, public barbecues will remain closed, as they can provide an opportunity for people to congregate at unsafe distances. This decision will, however, remain under review over the coming weeks. Council aquatic centres will also remain closed for now. Unfortunately, in the majority of cases, it's just not viable for the operator to reopen an aquatic centre when only 10 people can utilise the facility at any one time. I know the Premier announced that from 15 May public pools would reopen, but there are some practical realities that need to be considered. For a start, the running costs for aquatic centres, including heating at this time of the year, means reopening these venues to limited numbers of patrons would not be viable for the operators. Our aquatic centre operators are small to medium business owners who, like many other business owners, have been impacted financially by COVID-19. So Council will continue to work closely with those operators to facilitate their reopening when it's viable to do so. The good news is that when aquatic centres do reopen, many will do so with improvements made in recent months after Council has fast-tracked some works and maintenance at these facilities while they've been closed, in order to keep money circulating in the local economy and reduce the interruptions to patrons. Libraries will also remain closed at this time, while Council plans for the safe operation of these facilities, while the current restrictions on group numbers and physical distancing requirements remain in place. Council continues, however, to provide a library click and collect service extensive e-collections, tech help and online programming. We know how important our aquatic centres and our libraries are to our community, and we'll continue to work through the requirements to get them open again when it's safe and practical to do so. Also reopening from Saturday are many Sunshine Coast cafes and restaurants which will be permitted to seat 10 people at a time. Council will assist food businesses to meet the new restrictions to help ensure the safety of our broader community. Our officers will have the authority to respond to any complaints and to educate and assist business owners to understand the new operating requirements. Businesses should refer to the Queensland Government COVID safety checklist before reopening. They should also make use of the resources available from Queensland Government's website to assist with the reopening process. Our officers will work with local businesses so they are aware of COVID safe requirements, as we are mindful that business owners and operators are facing challenging times and changing requirements. I also want to remind our community once again, now is not the time to undo all the good work that we've done. Please continue to comply with social distancing requirements and other national health directions. If you arrive somewhere and you can't maintain that distance, turn around and go home or go to another venue. Unfortunately, last weekend we saw a number of people in the same places at the same time, both in indoor and outdoor areas, that really contravene the standards. I'd really like not to see that happen again. So with those few notes, I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah, it'll be incredibly hard. And I really urge the community to understand that and recognise that there will be, in some instances, certainly around skate parks, council officers overseeing activity. They're there doing their job, and that job at the moment is to keep people safe. So I don't want people to, abuse them for doing their job. I want everyone to understand that this is about community safety, and things will get better. And hopefully, when there's an increase in numbers who can use these facilities from July, more people will be able to utilise them with less risk for our community.
So it's not 10 kids on a playground, it's 10 people within that area?
Well, it includes the parents or other minders. And I think, again, I want people to be conscious of that. By all means, go to the parks, let your children utilise the facilities. Don't hog it, and give someone else a go. That the kids might be disappointed, but having some opportunity rather than none is probably not a bad option.
And regarding the cafes and restaurants and council officers monitoring that and doing the education, which is great, what if they are, obviously flouting the rules? I know there is going to be a fine, and what will that be?
Well, I encourage people not to flout the rules because, again, that puts at risk all the hard work we've done in protecting our community. And we don't want to see that undone through selfishness or greed necessarily. Council officers will be working on a process of education to help operators understand. And remember, this is a three-stage process, 10 people from Saturday, 20 from the middle of June, and then 100 from the middle of July. So don't ruin that plan by doing the wrong thing first off. If people are flagrantly flouting the rules, they'll be fined. And the fine is $1,334. So, I know small business can't afford that, so I'd ask them not to take the risk.
Is the fine to the restaurant owner or everyone in there, or how does that work?
Well, the restaurant owners, the operators of the businesses are responsible to ensure that only 10 people are there at a time. Now, again, you can understand the circumstances with a small cafe, a couple of staff. It's putting a lot of pressure on those people. So I want our residents and our visitors to accept self-responsibility. We're all in this together, and don't, put someone else's livelihood or business at risk by ignoring what I think is well understood by people as a consequence of COVID-19.
The state government's following that with the health advice should be a swimming pool. Why is it not viable for other countries?
Well, the lessees that lease the swimming pools and operate them, they're effectively private businesses. For them to open up all those facilities to cater for only 10 people at a time, which would logically require them having some sort of security at the front gate, limiting the numbers coming through, just make it unviable. And in all consciousness, I can't ask those people to suffer any more economic loss than they already have done, whilst the plan for recovery is in motion. And I think, in all likelihood, those facilities won't be viable until they can have 100 people in attendance, and that's not going to be until July. Well, the operators, my understanding, not directly to me, but my understanding is they have kept council advised about the lack of viability that exists for them with only 10 people allowed to attend. So I guess again, people need to understand that there are some basic economics associated with this, and they're going to have to be a little more patient on some of those facilities.
We see huge crowds, for example, at our state and people start doing the right thing. Is there a chance the council can close it off again?
Absolutely. And Queensland Police Service, who have done a magnificent job and been under incredible pressure on a whole lot of fronts, as they've been the key manager of public behaviour around COVID-19, will be as close as a phone call if they're needed to assist our officers. I don't want to see it get to that. I want people to be responsible and recognise that, this is a tough time, but if we do the right thing, it'll be a lot better in a couple of months' time.
Has paid parking been brought back in? And what's the
No, parking, paid parking in areas like Caloundra have been put on hold till the end of June. So that'll be reviewed at that time, and that will give council an opportunity to, make a decision about the demand for parking. And ultimately, that's what paid parking is all about, is to keep that turnover of parking available so that all businesses in Bullcock Street, for instance, can be advantaged.
We've got the 150-kilometre travel rule now. What's your message to people, say, from Brisbane or elsewhere that are coming here?
Well, the restrictions are being lifted. People can move about further, and I'm sure they will. I just urge people to remember that we want to keep our community safe, and whilst they're welcome, please bring the same behaviours you've been employing at home in Brisbane or elsewhere here on the coast. Recognise that businesses are severely restricted, or facilities severely restricted around numbers, and don't push the boundaries. Otherwise, we run the risk of undoing all the good work that the citizens of this community have done.
There's been lots of, slightly different subject, lots of commentary this morning about perhaps international travel won't be opened up until 2023. The runway is due to open next month. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously disappointing.
Well, I'm not disappointed about the runway opening. I'm excited about that because that's a great milestone in this region's history, and it will serve us for the next 100 years. I'm not sure about forecasts of 2023. That sounds like a long time to me. One would like to think that a vaccination has been finalised by then, and clearly the world's understanding of the impacts of COVID will be very clear. So, for our own well-being in terms of internationals visiting here and the like, particularly students in educational facilities, because we've seen what a disastrous impact that has had. Hard to think it would take that long, but I guess we're sort of in a new phase of the world's health, and we need to observe whatever happens.
Just so I'm clear, is it only libraries and
Libraries, pools, barbecues, public barbecues, that, in a relatively small space, clearly can attract a large congregation. So we'll monitor those, and the flexibility is there for them to be reopened at any time, once we feel confident that we're not creating an unnecessary risk. All right, thanks very much again for your help. Have a great day.